we're live with Get Connected. Mike Agerbo here with John Biehler. We're your tech guide. We're your friendly nerds that'll help you understand everything about technology in your life. And we've got an awesome program today. Later on, we will be opening up the mailbag, taking some of your tech questions. And also, we're going to be talking to someone from Intel that is developing the next generation of satellite technology or processors for satellites that incorporate artificial intelligence. And quick fact here, I don't want to spoil things, but did you know most of the processing technology in satellites right now is 20 years old? Well, we're going to learn why that is and what Intel is doing to make things better. Let's talk about some of the tech news, John. And there's some interesting stuff that we're following here. This was really cool. Microsoft has designed a new smart fabric that can detect objects placed on it. So if you put like a avocado on it, it can tell you that it's an avocado with 94% accuracy.
Why is this useful?
I don't know. I don't know yet, but this is kind of cool. It's called I can't even pronounce this. Can you pronounce it? Capitivo? Let's go with that. Sure. So you can place things. It's a prototype right now. It's like a 12 by 12 grid of electrodes attached to a conductive fabric. And they have tried a bunch of different things. The only thing that it's having a hard time with right now is metallic objects, books, credit cards, or other items with square edges. Can't figure that out.
But it can figure out organic shapes.
Apparently. I mean, that's kind of cool. What if you had like this on your jacket and you're walking like through like a dark hall and something touches you? You know, oh, that's Dexter. Run.
Is that really something we need solved?
I don't know, but I like it. So smart fabric coming to you in the future. You can have a smart jacket. Can tell you what you're touching. Let's move on to some of these stories here, John. This one was interesting as well. A robot with artificial intelligence that repairs potholes for a fraction of the cost of humans. So if your job is filling potholes right now, watch out.
The robots are coming.
They're coming for all of us, but
yeah,
for potholes sooner than later. So this is super cool. Like, because there are so many potholes, especially, you know, during the winter and after winter because of all the cold and moisture and water. And they got to send a team out to fill these things. And that's multiple bodies and equipment. This is like one big robot looking.
It looks like a tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
A pothole tank.
Yeah. The way I described it though is it's a pothole tank that will basically find that hole and then 3D print over top of it.
Like asphalt?
Asphalt. Yeah. Like just fills in the gaps.
Does it really have to get that accurate with it? Can it just like squirt some asphalt in there and just smooth it over? I guess it's got to kind of know how much to put in.
Well, yeah, because then you won't have a big ramp. Getting all Dukes of Hazzard on 16th Avenue.
Yeah, you got to Google this thing. It looks like a big tank. It's like a big square tank. But wouldn't that be amazing? Just having, you know, a couple of these go throughout the city.
Yeah, at night when no one else is on the roads.
No, they'll have them going during the day, rush hour, of course, just to keep things real. But it's just amazing, some of the technology, and especially with the artificial intelligence, knowing exactly what shape to print that asphalt into so that it can put it in perfectly. Like, how much faster would that be?
Probably a lot faster.
Yeah. But I guess it just comes down to the price. Like, how much is one of these robots?
That is the magic question, I think.
It's not cheap.
No.
And obviously, they need humans to drive this thing and to make sure it doesn't run amok, so to speak.
Put asphalt over top of a dog that gets stuck underneath it.
Yeah, see, that's not good.
Yeah.
Anyway, these are some of the things we're following in the tech news here on Get Connected. I just want to talk about our contests. I think it's over today. We've been giving away a Roku Stream Bar, so it's your last chance to enter to win. This is an awesome sound bar / smart TV device, all built into one. Works on any TV with an HDMI connection. Again, from Roku. Go to our contest page, getconnectedmedia.com. And tomorrow, we will be giving away a new prize for November, a Google Pixel 4 XL. So even if you sign up today for this contest, you'll be automatically entered in to win that one next month. And this is an awesome smartphone. It's got like one of the best cameras out there, especially for dark and night photography. So again, a Google Pixel 4 XL and the Roku Stream Bar. GetConnectedMedia.com. Go to the newsletter tab and all the instructions are there. When we come back, we're going to find out about a cereal box-sized satellite that's using the latest in processing technology to save money and get images back to Earth faster. Back after this. You are back with Get Connected. Mike Agerbo here with John Biehler. We've got a really interesting segment here now and a great guest. We're going to be talking about the first satellites with artificial intelligence on board and what that means. There is actually a satellite passing overhead of us. I think it over 530 kilometers, going about 27,000 kilometers an hour. And it's basically using something from Intel, the Intel Movidius Myriad 2 Vision Processing Unit, or a VPU. To help us understand why this is important, we've got our guest. His name is Jonathan Byrne. He's head of technology office at Intel Movidius. Thanks for joining us, Jonathan.
No problem.
I got to be honest, I would have thought there would already be artificial intelligence in a lot of the satellites up there. Why is it taken this long to get up?
Well, there is a lag between the processors in Earth and the processors in space, and it's about 20 years. So
what?
The technology, yes.
You're freaking me out now.
Yeah, I mean, they're running on, if even Pentium quality processors in space, because it costs huge amounts to design the chips to verify that they can be rad hardened, and so they stick with very old technology that has what they call a space heritage, that it has shown to be resilient in space. And
when you say resilient in space, like what do they have to endure?
Well, the biggest problem is massive amounts of ionizing radiation. So you have electrons whizzing about the place, and they can do things like set and unset bits, change the values in transistors. You can have things called latch-up events, where basically the circuit gets locked in a power-using position, and it basically can't turn off. And these are all very bad things that will destroy your satellite.
These sound important.
Yes.
Important functions. Okay, before we get a little more into that and what you've done to, I guess, harden your Intel chip, why would we want to have artificial intelligence on a chip? And tell us more about this satellite as well and what it's supposed to be doing. I think it's called the FISAT-1.
FISAT-1, yes. So it has a hyperspectral camera, a very, very compact one. The whole drone itself, or the satellite itself, is about the size of a box of cornflakes. And basically, with the kind of push towards small sats and CubeSats, the technology is getting much, much more compact, while at the same time, it's generating huge amounts of data. So even small CubeSats like the FISAT-1 are generating massive amounts of hyperspectral imagery, and that all has to be transmitted back to Earth. When it gets to bigger satellites, like the ones in the ESA Copernicus program, which are mapping the Earth, they can send petabytes of data. And the problem is they just don't have enough availability in the ground stations to transmit it all. So what FISAT-1 is showing is basically it's going to remove any images of clouds. 70% of the Earth is covered in clouds on average at any particular moment. That way, if you're taking a picture of a cloud, don't send it.
Yeah.
And it may sound really obvious, but like the best compression algorithms out there at the moment are getting maybe 10% compression on the image data. We can get 60% reduction in data before compression, just using this approach. So by not sending data that is of clouds, we can massively reduce the amount of bandwidth.
So it's a cloud remover.
Cloud remover. That's function number one. And if we can do that, that solves a huge problem. with these sort of passive sensors such as the hyperspectral cameras or RGB optical cameras.
You said the satellite's like the size of a cereal box.
Yeah.
That's also kind of scary to me. Is that safe and stable? Like, wouldn't you want like one the size of a fridge?
Ooh, well,
I guess that's
again,
more expensive to send up.
absolutely. And the point here is like the hyperspectral camera on the FiSat-1, maybe 10 years ago, it would have required something the size of a fridge. With these smaller satellites, they're in low Earth orbit, so they are designed to degrade and naturally fall back in, after I think a year and a half of the FiSat-1, and basically burn up. So the idea is that you have smaller satellites in temporary low Earth orbit that will naturally degrade and fall out of the sky. So there's less risk there. But the point here is cost. Sending something up the size of a fridge is massively expensive, and instead sending up smaller satellites that can do this sort of functionality is taking off massively. I've heard costs of 50,000 for a satellite launch, which is crazy cheap compared to how much it used to cost.
Sorry, only 50,000 for your cereal box?
For a 1U, so with CubeSats they do it with 1 unit.
Yeah.
So ours is a 6U satellite, which is 6 units. But I
Okay.
think for 1U, it's as low as 50,000 on a launch.
That's pretty cheap. I mean, in the past, these things have been like millions, if not into the billions of dollars.
It was only the governments would be able to fund these sort of things. This was beyond kind of private enterprise. But now the prices are being driven down massively. So, yeah.
You said this satellite's only going to last about a year?
A year and a half. And it's currently monitoring. It has a hyperspectral camera and a thermal IR camera that allows it to monitor the environment. It will be looking for changes in the polar ice caps, and it'll also be able to detect things like forest fires and their spread.
Do we already have stuff like that up there? Satellites that do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's hyperspectral cameras that will deal with different applications, different wavelengths of light, but the key is to have satellites that are in the right place at the right time. But again, when all of this analysis is done, it has to transmit all of those images back to Earth, and then those images have to be inspected by either a human or an algorithm once they hit the ground. What we're looking at, the next application of AI, is that it will automatically detect the fires in the stream and video data, and will only transmit those images back, images that are important, and not having to stream everything back to Earth and let it be processed there, basically processing it on the edge.
And how far are we away from that?
We're very close. So with this FiSat-1, we're showing that the hardware and the AI is capable of operating in space. But we have planned FiSat-2, which will be going up sometime in either 2021 or 2022. And we're also looking at possibilities of satellites as a service. So, for example, loading multiple networks onto a satellite, or if deep learning models onto a satellite. So, for example, if it's over California, it's looking for wildfires, whereas if it's over an area during rainy season, it could be looking for flooding. If it's over the sea, it could be looking for algal bloom, and only sending the information back as it detects it.
We're talking with Jonathan Byrne. He's head of technology over at the Intel Movidius side. And we're talking about a specific chip as well. The Intel Movidius Myriad 2 Vision Processing Unit. Sounds really techy, Jonathan. But again, it's basically bringing artificial intelligence up into space to allow processing to happen faster and more intelligently, to save on time and money, I guess, overall. So we talked about this spotting forest fires, very quickly, or wildfires for that matter, and sending that back to Earth right away. Are there satellites that already do that? Like, is it going to be faster, or is it as fast as these existing ones?
The amount of data that's generated by the other satellites could be better, but they still require a lot of this processing. the idea of being able to transmit and notify people on the ground in real time is where there would be great savings. And again, this is part of an idea of building up a mesh or a constellation of these satellites so that they could be continuously monitoring. Again, FISAT-1 is actually, it's one of a pair of satellites that I think have a 2-day coverage of the Earth. But again, there are other satellites out there with hyperspectral cameras that have this functionality as part, I think, as well as the Copernicus program has. ESA has a couple of other satellites that do the similar monitoring of hyperspectral data.
But your cereal boxes are cheaper.
Cheaper and more numerous. So
I'm interested. You talked about edge computing. Can you explain to listeners what that means? I don't think everyone understands that concept.
Oh, of course. Sorry. Yes. So this was the idea behind the Movidius technology. Was there are very powerful GPUs and big expensive processors that can be used on the cloud for processing data. But Movidius focused on low power embedded technologies. So they realized that the world is moving to putting cameras in everything. And in order to be able to process the output from those cameras, you needed something that was very low power and could work, low cost and be able to be built into PCBs. So the idea of the edge was, if you had a system that was monitoring a car park, for example, if you try and send all the streams of data from all the camera systems back to a server, you're going to use huge amounts of bandwidth. You're going to be using terabytes of data across the network every day. And you have big, expensive servers that have to do all this processing. Whereas if you put a Movidius chip in the camera and it only counts the number of cars that it sees and reports that back maybe every 15 minutes, you can massively reduce the amount of data. The idea is to process at the edge of the cloud rather than on the cloud itself, and only send back important information. So with that kind of goal, the Myriad chip was first initially put in drones. So the DJI drones used it for collision avoidance, and it was able to handle the output of 8 high HD cameras and use less than a watt of power. So anything running off a battery, for example, you need to focus on this low power envelope.
Again, we're talking with our good friend. His name is Jonathan Byrne. He's over with the Intel Movidius folks. We're going to have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're just going to pick his brain a little bit more on how they actually make sure that the chip can withstand the rigors of space. You're listening to Get Connected. Back after this. You are back with Get Connected. We're talking about satellites and artificial intelligence in space. We've got Jonathan Byrne. He is head of technology over at Intel Movidius. They have launched a satellite into space called the FISAT-1. It's got an Intel Movidius Myriad 2 Vision processing unit, a VPU. This is the same type of chip that you can find in drones. Under $1,000 here on Earth. They're now using this artificial intelligence to make the satellite smarter, more efficient, to save money and time. Thanks again for joining us, Jonathan.
No problem.
Earlier on in our interview, you talked about the processors or the chips in a lot of these satellites are 20 years old. And you were actually bringing the latest technology now up into space. And the reason before, or the reason now still, is that these chips have to be tested against all sorts of things that are happening up there. What did you guys have to do to make sure that your VPU, your video processing unit, could actually survive?
So we were working with a company called Ubotica, who basically built a board around our chip for integration with these sort of space applications and in satellites. And in order to show that this would survive in space, they had to go to CERN and basically bring it to the Large Hadron Collider and put it in front of a particle stream where it was bombarded by high energy particles for, I think, 3 days continuously.
Isn't this how the Hulk started?
Yeah, not too far off. And what amazed me was the pictures they sent back is, they don't, these accelerators, you can't turn them off. they just they just keep firing because it's too expensive to turn them off. So they just have a large concrete block that keep them safe. So you have to make sure you know which side you're walking around on if you're working on the chip. But basically what you find is, there's certain types of hardware that are very vulnerable to this. For example, RAM, you could have bits flipped, or you can have latch up events where it gets locked in the on position, you can't turn it off. But the chip itself turned out to be, even though it's a commercial off-the-shelf chip, it managed to work fine. There was very few events, and basically they can use it as is. Now, what they do is they do add extra electronics around it that monitor its power usage. And if, for example, something did happen and it did get locked on, it's easy to reset it. That seems to be the way of making these satellites work, is the old Windows turn it
you're
off,
basically
turn it on again.
You're rebooting it in space.
Reboot it in space and see how it goes. That seems to solve a lot of problems. And that sort of facility has to be added. But the chip itself proved to be surprisingly resilient. One of the interesting things was that the chip, when Movidius was a startup and they couldn't afford to buy an ARM core or an Intel core design, what they actually did was they took one that was free and openly available, which was the Leon core, which had been developed by ESA. And because it was developed by a public body, they gave it away for free. So ESA developed this, 15, 20 years ago. They gave it away for free. A small startup has used it in their technology, and now it's ended up going back to ESA. So this is another reason possibly why it was so resilient, was that it actually was building on space technology to begin with.
Jonathan, I'm really curious about this, the actual structure itself, the serial box, as Mike called it. You mentioned that when you were doing the testing at CERN, that it was resilient out of the box, basically. When it's actually part of
like
this,
what you did there, John.
Yeah, thank you. When it's actually in space, is it literally just a circuit board? Like, what's the kind of housing? Like, what do these satellites actually look like? Like
what the satellite actually, I'll tell you, I can describe it because I 3D modeled it myself. Is you have the Hyperscout camera, the Hyperscout 2, which is the hyperspectral camera. On that, it has a PCB, which contains our board, which is monitoring the data coming off it. And the rest of the box is essentially batteries, solar panels, and torque motors. So these satellites don't have any like hydrazine or something to correct their position. They have small torque rods that they can turn to align and orient the satellite. And basically, it's very simple. It's just solar panels that are topping up the battery, the torque rods to do the alignment, and then the camera itself that's taking the pictures. So that's really all it is. And again, they're being designed to be as small as possible. The launch that we were on, the Vega rocket, was deploying something like 16 satellites. They've come up with a new way of sending out multiple satellites at once. And there's a huge push to just make these very small, compact satellites for low Earth orbit that follow this kind of design methodology. And that's it. Again, you don't want a huge amount of stuff in space. One question people always ask is like, wouldn't you use lead to kind of protect the electronics? But the problem is you have to use a centimeter of lead to protect it. And you wrap everything in a centimeter of lead, you've blown your weight budget. So, they're very, very simple by design, and they're just relying on basic electronic monitoring and, radiation characterized hardware to work.
We've been talking with Jonathan Byrne. He is, we'll call him Rocket Man. He's the head of technology over at Intel Movidius, talking all about artificial intelligence with a new generation of satellites. Thanks for joining us, Jonathan.
My pleasure. Thank you.
When we come back from the break, more tech to talk here on Get Connected. Stay tuned. You are back with Get Connected. Mike Agerbo here with John Biehler. It's time to open our viewer and listener mailbag. We get all sorts of questions into the website, getconnectedmedia.com. If you've got one, ask it. We might just choose it to answer on air. And we've got quite a few to go through here, John. So let's get to it. This one here is from Pascal, and he is asking, and I'm paraphrasing here, I listened to the radio show last week, and I have a great interest in smart home products for monitoring the water piping of my home. I'd like to get some more information on it. We talked to Mark Salzman about this, and I'm going to get one in my house. And so there's a few on the market. I think what Mark covered was one called Flow, F-L-O, from Moen, M-O-E-N. And these things aren't cheap. They're like $700. You probably want to get a plumber in to install this unless you're super handy. But the idea is once it's installed, you've got the app set up and everything, this monitors the water pressure inside your home. And it's smart enough to know if pipes are frozen, if there's a leak somewhere. And the fantastic part of it is that it'll automatically shut off the water to prevent any further damage. And that is a huge issue with insurance claims for homes, water damage because something has broken or burst.
I still don't know how we can tell just from the pressure changing what the problems are. Sounds like some pretty cool tech in there.
Yeah. I don't think it matters what the problem is as long as it shuts the water off.
Yeah.
Like, I've had friends where their entire basement was flooded because a pipe burst while they were away, even for like a few hours.
Yeah.
Like the water doesn't stop.
No.
So with these type of devices, it works quite well. There's other ones out there. Belkin also makes one called Phyn, spelled P-H-Y-N-N. Kind of does the same thing, a little bit cheaper, and they've got a few different models. So you'll want to check that out as well. Should we get another question here, John?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one. It's from Doug. And he's asking, I want to make my Sony TV into a smarter version using a Chrome Plus dongle. I don't understand the details to do it, the streaming cost. How does it all work? I'm a senior, so not really tech savvy. Yeah, and that's the challenge, John. Like some of these things, you're probably, if you can, get your son or daughter or a grandkid who is typically smarter than all of us, just to even help set the thing up to begin with. I mean, they're getting simpler, but there are a few things you have to jump through. So what he's, I think, asking about, Google's got a new Google Chrome device. It's like, how big would you say?
It's like the size of your keys.
Yeah, it's round. And it's got like one little plug that plugs into the back of the TV into what's called an HDMI connection. This is like an audio video source. And once you plug that in, it also has a power cord. So you are going to have to plug it into an actual wall outlet. Some of these things in the past, you could just plug into the back of your TV into one of the USB ports for power, but not this one. So if you can plug two things in, you're one step further.
We should clarify. This is a Google Chromecast
with Google TV built in.
Yeah. Chromecast is sort of the technology we're talking about here. We're giving away a Roku Stream Bar that also does the same kind of thing.
Yes.
Just a different provider.
So this comes with the little Chromecast. I call it a dongle.
Yeah.
Kind of like just hangs off the back of your TV. You got to plug one thing into the HDMI port, one into the power outlet, and it also comes with a remote control. So the next thing you have to make this all work would be a Google email address.
Yes.
So you're going to have to go to Gmail. Is that gmail.com?
It is.
It is. And get a Google Gmail email. And this is good because you can use it for everything.
Yeah. If you don't already have one.
And so once you have one, this is what you're going to use when you're setting it up. So basically, once it's plugged in and powered on, you turn your TV on. Make sure you have batteries in the remote control as well. It does come with batteries. And it should be popping up on the screen. You just have to make sure that the TV's set to the source that it's plugged into in the back. So you can just kind of flick through that. And then it's going to start asking questions like, what is your Gmail address? What is your password? Because it's going to use that to set up your account. And if you can do that, then you're on the right way to it. I think this one you have to go through Google Home. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
So you might have to go through the Google Home app, but it'll tell you on screen what app it wants you to download onto a smartphone or tablet.
When you get this actual dongle, it'll have probably a sticker or a pamphlet in it that'll
Yep.
have that all written out for you.
Yes. So again, if you can get a little bit of help, it makes this whole thing easier, unless you're a little more technical on that. So once you kind of get into that, then you got to start putting in the streaming services you have. So you've heard of Netflix, Amazon Prime Video is another one, Disney Plus, there's a whole bunch of them. So to get it to work, you have to have an account on those.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have an account, it's not going to work. So for example, Netflix, you're then going to have to go into Netflix. The app is preloaded. So if you can get this thing going, the Netflix icon will be there. You click on that, and then it'll walk you through setting up an account. And again, you're going to have to use your email, set up a password, and you're going to have your credit card ready as well because it wants your money.
Yeah. Sometimes if you already have one of these accounts, you're not going to have to log in all the stuff on the screen. It'll say, go to this website and say like netflix.com/activate. And then you, on your phone or computer outside of the TV, you'll just go to that website. You'll log into your device and you'll approve whatever code is on the screen as an active user of your service. And then everything will just work. You don't have to enter a password or anything like that. It'll be very simple, but it'll really vary and depend on the services that you're subscribed to. And like Mike mentioned, you might need your credit card because not all these things are free. In BC, there's a bunch of different channels that we get for free, like the Knowledge Network, for example. I think in Ontario, it's like TV Ontario, those kind of things. You can get apps for those services, and a lot of their content's free if you're a resident of that province, which is kind of cool.
So to get some of those, you're going to have to go into the App Store, whether that's like Google. If you were with Roku, you'll have to go into their app library and download it. And it's, once you get into it, it kind of makes sense and you can get through it. But the main ones like Netflix and Disney and those guys will typically be preloaded for you, which is a good thing. But that's the trick. We've done a few segments on these smart TV boxes and stuff. And, we think we're trying to be really helpful and it's, kind of easy. But I think sometimes we forget you also have to have an account on the streaming services. And that's where a lot of people get held up because they don't.
The other thing that we did get a mailbag about was someone was trying to get TV on their Stream Bar, and you can't.
Yes,
that cable TV is separate. You would still have to go back to on your TV. You'd have to switch back to your cable box, and assuming you have cable TV from a provider. If you don't have cable TV and you're completely cable TV free, there is some options where, like Global, for example, has a bunch of different channels you can subscribe to if you're not a cable subscriber. But if you are a subscriber, you can get those free, as does CBC and a few other ones too.
It gives me a great idea for another segment, and we're going to do this next week.
Okay.
How to replace most of your channels that you get on cable through a smart TV box.
Okay.
It's not perfect, but I've been looking into this because I'm just thinking of my parents.
Yeah.
Would it be easier if they could just get the apps for all these on a smart TV box instead of having their regular cable?
Well, and the nice thing is when you have these apps and you have it all set up and working on your TV, those same apps also work on like your iPad or your phone. So if you're not in the TV room or near a TV, or say you're, at the coffee shop and you want to watch a show, you can do that on your mobile device too.
Let's do this and price compare it.
Okay.
I love this idea. Okay, we still have a bit more to talk about here on Get Connected today. Coming up, we're going to be talking about a way to have a little control center for your smart home. Sure, you can look it on your iPhone or your computer, but what if you had a nice, larger interface that you could mount on your wall or just kind of have on a little stand in your kitchen? We'll tell you how to do that cheaply. You're listening to Get Connected. Back after this. You're back with Get Connected. Mike and John here. Don't forget to hit the website, getconnectedmedia.com, giving away a few things, a Roku Stream Bar. This is a sound bar and smart TV device built into one unit. And we're going to be giving away a Google Pixel 4 XL starting on November 1st. So if you enter today, you'll have a chance to win either of those. Getconnectedmedia.com, hit the newsletter tab, and you're good to go. John, I just want to quickly talk about a cool thing I saw. I've got smart home stuff going on. And to access it, I either use my voice or better to look on my iPhone.
Yes.
But I've always thought, it'd be great if I had a little control center for that. And we found something that is fairly inexpensive to do that. And it's from Amazon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Amazon has a pretty robust app. It's the Amazon Alexa app. But what they've done is they've actually made part of the operating system on their Fire tablets like a dashboard for that system. So it's an option. It's on your home screen. It's on even the lock screen. So the idea is like you could actually have this sort of set up in a room, maybe on your coffee table, mounted to the wall, whatever makes sense. And you can actually see all the status of your smart home devices.
Well, and the cool thing, these Fire tablets from Amazon are so cheap. They're under $100, some of them.
Some of them are like $50.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even the kid size ones, they've been as cheap as like $25 or $30.
So you could get like a little stand that you could basically stick this in your family room. So you could control everything from your music to your lights to your alarm, to your thermostat. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And it's basically just a free update that's been available on these tablets. And the nice thing is if you already have one of these tablets, you might already be compatible with it because they are compatible with the Fire 7, which is from 2019, the HD8 2018 and 2020 editions, and the HD10, the 2019 edition.
We're going to do a video on this.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, that's all the time we have left. I want to thank John and Christina for helping put this show together and the rest of the folks as well, including Stephen. We'll see you again next time.